Captain Ibrahim Traoré sat in his modest office in Ouagadougou, staring at the old computer screen that flickered every few seconds. Outside his window, the bustling streets of Burkina Faso's capital were filled with motorcycles, old cars belching black smoke, and people walking under the scorching African sun. But Ibrahim wasn't focused on the chaos outside. His mind was occupied with something much bigger, something that could change everything. At 34, Ibrahim had already made a name for himself as a revolutionary leader, but few people knew about his secret passion for engineering and technology. During his military training years ago, he had spent countless nights reading about electric vehicles, solar power, and sustainable technology. While other soldiers slept, Ibrahim dreamed of a future where Africa wouldn't depend on expensive imported oil and gas. The idea had been growing in his mind for months. Every time he saw another fuel truck arrive from neighboring countries, carrying expensive gasoline that drained Burkina Faso's limited resources, he felt more determined. Every time he witnessed families struggling to afford transportation, he knew something had to change. But it wasn't until he met Dr. Aminata Kone that his dream began to take real shape. Dr. Kone was a brilliant engineer who had returned to Burkina Faso after spending 15 years working for major automotive companies in Germany and Japan. She was frustrated with the corporate world's slow pace of innovation and wanted to make a real difference in her homeland. When she heard about Ibrahim's interest in sustainable technology, she requested a private meeting. Their first conversation lasted 6 hours. Ibrahim shared his vision of creating affordable electric vehicles specifically designed for African conditions, while Dr. Kone explained the technical challenges and possibilities. They talked about the extreme heat, the dusty roads, the need for vehicles that could handle both urban streets and rural terrain. Most importantly, they discussed how to make these vehicles affordable for ordinary African families. The big companies like Tesla focus on luxury markets in rich countries, Dr. Kone explained, her eyes lighting up with excitement. But what if we created something different? What if we built electric cars that cost less than half of what Tesla charges but worked better in African conditions? Ibrahim leaned forward, intrigued. Tell me more. Think about it, she continued. Tesla's cars are designed for smooth American highways and European roads. They need special charging stations that cost thousands of dollars to install. But what if we created a car that could charge using simple solar panels? What if we made it tough enough to handle our roads, but simple enough that any local mechanic could repair it? The more they talked, the more excited Ibrahim became. This wasn't just about building cars. This was about economic independence, environmental protection, and giving African people control over their own transportation future. But he also knew the challenges would be enormous. Over the following weeks, Ibrahim began quietly assembling a team. He reached out to other African engineers working abroad, promising them a chance to build something revolutionary in their homeland. He contacted local metalworkers, mechanics, and craftsmen who had been repairing imported vehicles for decades. Most importantly, he began studying the global electric vehicle market, learning everything he could about Tesla, Chinese manufacturers, and emerging technologies. What Ibrahim discovered both excited and worried him. Tesla's stock price had been soaring, making Elon Musk one of the richest people in the world. The company was expanding rapidly, building factories in China, Germany, and the United States. But Ibrahim noticed something interesting. Tesla had almost no presence in Africa. Neither did most other major electric vehicle manufacturers. They're ignoring an entire continent, Ibrahim told Dr. Kone during one of their evening planning sessions. Almost 1.4 billion people live in Africa, but these companies act like we don't exist. Dr. Kone nodded grimly. That's because they think we're too poor to buy their products. They assume we'll always depend on old, polluting vehicles, imported from richer countries. Then we'll prove them wrong, Ibrahim declared. The challenge was funding. Building cars, even simple ones, required significant investment in equipment, materials, and skilled workers. Ibrahim's government position gave him some influence, but Burkina Faso wasn't a wealthy country. He needed to be creative. Ibrahim began reaching out to successful African business people and international investors who were interested in sustainable development. He prepared detailed presentations showing how affordable electric vehicles could transform transportation across Africa. He emphasized the environmental benefits, the potential for job creation, and the huge market opportunity that established companies were ignoring. Some investors were skeptical. "Electric cars in Africa?" one businessman from Nigeria asked during a video call. "People here can barely afford regular cars. How will they buy electric ones?" But Ibrahim had an answer ready. What if the electric cars cost less to own than regular cars? What if they never needed expensive gasoline? What if they could charge using the sun, which we have plenty of? What if they lasted longer and needed fewer repairs? Slowly, investors began to pay attention. The combination of Ibrahim's leadership reputation and Dr. Cohn's technical expertise was compelling. More importantly, the market research they presented was eye-opening. Millions of Africans were buying used vehicles every year, spending huge amounts on fuel and maintenance. If they could offer a better alternative at a competitive price, the demand could be enormous. After 3 months of planning and fundraising, Ibrahim made a bold decision. He would announce the project publicly, even though they hadn't built a single prototype yet. He knew this was risky. If they failed to deliver, his reputation would be damaged. But he also understood that publicity could help attract more investors, engineers, and partners. The announcement came during a speech about economic development. Almost casually, Ibrahim mentioned that Burkina Faso would soon begin producing its own electric vehicles. "We will not wait for other countries to solve our transportation problems," he declared. "We will build our own solutions." Most people in the audience didn't fully understand the significance of what they had just heard. But thousands of miles away, in Tesla's headquarters in California, someone was paying attention. Within hours, news of Ibrahim's announcement was circulating among automotive industry analysts and investors. The reaction was mixed. Some dismissed it as an impossible dream from a small African country. Others worried that new competition could emerge from unexpected places. A few forward-thinking analysts began asking uncomfortable questions about Tesla's strategy in emerging markets. Ibrahim didn't know it yet, but his announcement had just started a chain of events that would shake up the entire electric vehicle industry. The first prototype was nothing like a Tesla. Where Tesla cars were sleek and futuristic, Ibrahim's vehicle looked rugged and practical. Dr. Cohn and her team had spent 6 months designing something completely different from anything the world had seen before. The vehicle sat higher off the ground with thick tires designed for rough roads and muddy terrain. Instead of smooth curves, it had angular panels that could be easily replaced if damaged. Most remarkably, the entire roof was covered with flexible solar panels that could generate electricity even while driving. The interior was simple but comfortable, with seats that could be easily cleaned and controls that any driver could understand. "This is the Africa car," Dr. Cohn explained proudly as Ibrahim examined their creation. "It's built for our conditions, our needs, and our budgets." But the real innovation wasn't visible from the outside. The battery system was designed to be modular, meaning damaged sections could be replaced without changing the entire battery pack. The motor was simpler and more robust than Tesla's complex systems, making it easier to repair and maintain. Most importantly, the charging system could work with standard electrical outlets, solar panels, or even small generators. Ibrahim climbed into the driver's seat and turned the key. The vehicle started silently, with just a gentle hum from the electric motor. As he pressed the accelerator, the car moved smoothly forward, handling the rough test track with ease. The air conditioning worked perfectly, powered by the solar panels on the roof. "How much will it cost?" Ibrahim asked, though he already knew the answer would determine everything. "With local production and simple components, we can sell it for about $12,000, Dr. Cohn replied. "That's less than half the price of the cheapest Tesla, and it includes everything: solar charging, air conditioning, and a 5-year warranty." Ibrahim smiled. This was exactly what they had dreamed of creating. But he also knew that building one prototype was very different from manufacturing thousands of vehicles. They needed a real factory, trained workers, and a reliable supply chain. The timing couldn't have been better. Several international companies were looking to invest in African manufacturing, partly to diversify their supply chains and partly to take advantage of lower labor costs. Ibrahim's project attracted attention from unexpected sources. A Chinese battery manufacturer offered to supply advanced lithium batteries at wholesale prices in exchange for a partnership agreement. A German engineering company provided technical expertise and quality control systems. Most surprisingly, a group of African American investors from Detroit, led by a former General Motors executive named Marcus Washington, offered both funding and automotive industry knowledge. "We've been waiting for something like this," Marcus explained during his first visit to Ouagadougou. "The big automakers have been ignoring Africa for decades, but we see the potential. With the right approach, this could be bigger than anyone imagines." Within months, the team had secured enough funding to build a small manufacturing facility on the outskirts of the capital. They hired local workers and began training them in electric vehicle assembly techniques. The process wasn't easy. Many workers had never seen electric motors or battery systems before, but their experience with mechanical repairs and metalworking proved valuable. Meanwhile, news of the project was spreading across Africa and beyond. Social media posts showing the prototype generated excitement among young Africans who had never imagined their continent could produce high-tech vehicles. International journalists began writing articles about the African Tesla, though Ibrahim always corrected them. "We're not trying to be the African Tesla," he insisted during interviews. "We're trying to be something better, a company that actually serves African needs." But not everyone was pleased with the project's progress. Some established automakers began to worry about the implications. If a small African country could successfully produce affordable electric vehicles, what would stop other developing nations from following the same path? The first sign of serious opposition came from an unexpected source. A European environmental group published a report questioning the project's sustainability credentials. They argued that manufacturing electric vehicles in Africa would create pollution and that the continent should focus on public transportation instead of private cars. Ibrahim was frustrated by the criticism. "These same people never complained when Europe and America built car factories," he pointed out. "Now that Africa wants to build its own, suddenly it's a problem?" Dr. Cohn was more direct in her response. "They want us to stay dependent on their old technology forever. They're afraid of real competition." The criticism had an unexpected effect. It generated more publicity for the project. African newspapers and websites began covering the story more extensively, framing it as a question of economic independence and technological sovereignty. Young Africans on social media rallied around the project, seeing it as proof that their continent could innovate and compete globally. Orders began pouring in before the first production vehicle was even built. Taxi drivers in Lagos, farmers in Ghana, and small business owners across West Africa expressed interest in purchasing the vehicles. The company had to create a waiting list and require deposits just to manage the demand. But the real breakthrough came when the African Union expressed official support for the project. They announced that electric vehicle manufacturing would be a priority for the Continental Free Trade Agreement, making it easier to sell the cars across African borders. "This is about more than transportation," the AU spokesperson announced. "This is about Africa taking control of its own technological future." The announcement sent shockwaves through the global automotive industry. Stock prices for traditional automakers fell slightly as investors worried about new competition. Tesla's stock, which had been climbing steadily, experienced its first significant drop in months. Elon Musk, Tesla's CEO, initially dismissed the African project during a podcast interview. "Building cars is incredibly difficult," he said. "There's a reason why there are only a few successful car companies in the world. I wish them luck, but the automotive industry is littered with failed startups." His comments were widely reported across African media, generating anger and determination in equal measure. Ibrahim chose not to respond directly, but Dr. Cohn was less diplomatic. "He's right that building cars is difficult," she said during a television interview. "But so was building rockets, and he figured that out. The difference is, we're not trying to send rich people to Mars. We're trying to help ordinary people get to work." The first production vehicle rolled off the assembly line on a hot Tuesday morning in March. Ibrahim was there to witness the moment, along with dozens of workers, journalists, and government officials. The car looked identical to the prototype, but everyone knew this moment represented something much larger. As cameras flashed and reporters asked questions, Ibrahim walked around the vehicle inspecting every detail. The solar panels gleamed in the bright sunlight, already generating electricity. The interior smelled of new fabric and electronics. The paint job was simple but professional. "This is just the beginning," Ibrahim announced to the gathered crowd. "Today we build one car. Next month we'll build 50. By next year we'll build thousands." But even as he celebrated this milestone, Ibrahim knew the real challenges were just starting. Scaling up production, maintaining quality, and competing against established brands would test everything they had built. More importantly, the global automotive industry was finally starting to take notice of what was happening in Burkina Faso. That evening, as the celebrations wound down, Dr. Cohn pulled Ibrahim aside. "I just got a call from our contact at the battery supplier," she said quietly. "Tesla has been asking questions about our partnership. They want to know about our technology and production plans." Ibrahim nodded thoughtfully. He had expected this moment would come eventually. The question was whether they were ready for the battle that was about to begin. The phone call came at 3 a.m. Ibrahim was pulled from deep sleep by the urgent ringing, his mind immediately alert to potential emergency. On the other end was Marcus Washington, calling from Detroit with news that would change everything. "They're trying to shut us down," Marcus said without any greeting. "Tesla just filed patent infringement claims against our battery design. They're also pressuring our suppliers to break their contracts with us." Ibrahim sat up in bed, his mind racing. He had known this day would come, but not this soon. "What exactly are they claiming?" "They say our modular battery system violates 3 of their patents. Their lawyers sent cease and desist letters to our Chinese battery supplier and the German engineering firm. They're also claiming our solar roof design infringes on their solar panel patents." This was serious. Fighting patent claims against a company like Tesla could cost millions of dollars and take years to resolve. Even worse, if their suppliers got scared and pulled out, the entire project could collapse before it really began. "There's more," Marcus continued. "I'm hearing rumors that Tesla is planning to announce a new emerging markets vehicle next month, something specifically designed for developing countries." Ibrahim felt anger rising in his chest. For years, Tesla had ignored Africa and other developing regions. Now that someone else was serving those markets, suddenly they were interested, but he forced himself to stay calm and think strategically. "Get our lawyers on the patent claims immediately," Ibrahim instructed. "I want a full analysis of every claim they're making, and call an emergency meeting with all our major investors and partners. If Tesla wants a fight, they'll get one." Over the next few days, the situation escalated rapidly. Tesla's legal team filed additional patent claims, targeting not just the battery system but also the vehicle's charging mechanism and even some aspects of its design. More concerning, 2 of their key suppliers announced they were reviewing their contracts due to intellectual property concerns. Dr. Cohn was furious when she learned about the patent claims. "Half of these patents are obvious modifications of existing technology," she told Ibrahim as they reviewed the legal documents. "They're trying to use the patent system to eliminate competition, not to protect genuine innovation. But legal battles required money and time they didn't have. Every day spent fighting in court was a day not spent building cars and serving customers." Ibrahim knew they needed a different strategy. Theory. Breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A young lawyer named Fatima Diallo, who had recently returned to Burkina Faso after working for a major international law firm, approached Ibrahim with an interesting proposal. "Tesla's patent claims have a weakness," she explained during their meeting. "Most of their key patents were filed when they assumed they would only operate in rich countries with perfect infrastructure. Our vehicle is genuinely different because it's designed for African conditions that Tesla never considered." She spread out technical drawings on the conference table. "Look at this. Tesla's solar integration assumes clean, flat surfaces and optimal sun angles. Our system works with dust, irregular surfaces, and varying weather conditions. That's not an obvious modification. That's genuine innovation solving problems Tesla never thought about. More importantly, Fatima had discovered something else. Tesla's new emerging markets vehicle project violates several patents held by Chinese manufacturers. If we coordinate with them, we could file counterclaims that would tie Tesla up in legal battles across multiple countries. Ibrahim liked this approach. Instead of just defending against Tesla's attacks, they could go on the offensive. But he also wanted to try something else first: direct communication. Against the advice of his lawyers, Ibrahim requested a video call with Elon Musk himself. To everyone's surprise, Musk agreed to the meeting. 2 days later, they sat facing each other on computer screens, separated by thousands of miles and completely different worldviews. "I respect what you're trying to do," Musk began, his voice carrying a mixture of admiration and concern. "But the automotive industry is incredibly complex. These patent protections exist for good reasons. We've invested billions in developing this technology." Ibrahim leaned forward, speaking calmly but firmly. "Mr. Musk, with respect, you've been ignoring Africa for years. You've built factories in China, Germany, and America, but never considered serving the people here. Now that we're solving our own problems, you want to stop us?" "It's not about stopping innovation," Musk replied. "It's about protecting intellectual property rights. If companies can just copy our technology without paying licensing fees, there's no incentive to invest in research and development." "But we're not copying your technology," Ibrahim countered. "We're solving different problems that you never addressed. Your cars can't handle our roads, can't charge in our conditions, and cost more than most African families earn in several years. We built something completely different." The conversation continued for over an hour, covering everything from patent law to economic development to the future of transportation in developing countries. Both men were passionate about their positions, but neither seemed willing to compromise. Finally, Musk made an unexpected offer. "What if Tesla partnered with your company? We could provide technology licensing, manufacturing expertise, and global distribution networks. You could focus on local customization while we handle the complex engineering challenges." Ibrahim had anticipated this possibility, but hearing it directly still came as a shock. A partnership with Tesla would provide enormous resources and credibility. It would also mean giving up much of their independence and vision. "I appreciate the offer," Ibrahim replied carefully. "But our goal isn't just to build cars. It's to prove that Africa can innovate and compete globally. A partnership where we become Tesla's junior partner wouldn't achieve that objective." Musk looked frustrated. "Then what do you propose? We can't just ignore patent violations." "Drop the patent claims," Ibrahim said simply. "Let us compete fairly in the market. If your technology is truly superior, you'll succeed based on merit, not legal barriers. If our approach works better for African conditions, then the market will decide." The call ended without resolution, but both men seemed to respect each other more than when they started. However, the legal battles continued to escalate. 3 days later, Tesla announced their new Tesla Global vehicle line, specifically designed for emerging markets. The announcement included plans for manufacturing facilities in Mexico, India, and Thailand, but notably not in Africa. The vehicle would be priced at $15,000, significantly higher than Ibrahim's $12,000 target, but still lower than Tesla's traditional models. The announcement generated mixed reactions. Some automotive industry analysts praised Tesla for finally addressing developing markets. Others questioned why it had taken the company so long to recognize the opportunity. African commentators were more critical, pointing out that Tesla was only entering these markets after local innovation had proven their viability. Ibrahim's response was measured, but pointed. "Competition is good for consumers," he stated during a press conference. "If Tesla wants to serve African markets, they're welcome to try. But they should compete fairly, not use legal intimidation to eliminate competitors." Behind the scenes, however, the pressure was mounting. 2 more suppliers had terminated their contracts citing legal uncertainties. The company's lawyers warned that the patent battles could cost millions of dollars and take years to resolve. Some investors were getting nervous about the risks, but Ibrahim also had reasons for optimism. Orders for their vehicles continued to pour in from across Africa. Several other African countries had expressed interest in hosting manufacturing facilities. Most importantly, a coalition of developing country governments was preparing to file a complaint with the World Trade Organization, arguing that Tesla was using patent law to prevent legitimate competition. The real test would come in the next few months. Could Ibrahim's small company survive a sustained legal and commercial attack from one of the world's most powerful corporations? Or would Tesla's resources and influence prove too much to overcome? As Ibrahim reviewed the latest legal filings that evening, Dr. Cohn knocked on his office door. "I just got off the phone with our battery supplier in China," she reported. "They're standing by us. They said Tesla approached them with threats, but they're more afraid of losing access to the African market than they are of Tesla's lawsuits." Ibrahim smiled for the first time in days. Maybe they had more allies than he realized. The breakthrough came from an unlikely source, a group of engineering students at the University of Lagos. While Tesla and Ibrahim's company battled in courtrooms and boardrooms, young African innovators were conducting their own experiments with electric vehicle technology. Led by a brilliant 23-year-old named Keoma Okafor, the students had been following the patent disputes with great interest. Unlike the lawyers arguing about technical specifications, these students understood the actual engineering challenges that Ibrahim's team had solved. "The patent claims don't make sense," Keoma explained during a video call with Dr. Kone. "Tesla's battery management system is designed for perfect conditions, clean power grids, climate-controlled environments, and predictable usage patterns. Your system handles power fluctuations, extreme temperatures, and irregular charging cycles. These are completely different problems requiring different solutions." More importantly, the students had discovered something that could change everything. Working with limited resources but unlimited creativity, they had developed their own innovations that could strengthen Ibrahim's patent defense and potentially revolutionize electric vehicle technology. "We've created a new type of battery cooling system using traditional African pottery techniques," Keoma explained excitedly. "Clay naturally regulates temperature and humidity. We've adapted this principle to keep batteries stable in extreme heat without energy-intensive cooling systems." Dr. Cohn was fascinated. "Show me the data." The results were impressive. The students' cooling system maintained optimal battery temperatures using 60% less energy than conventional cooling methods. More importantly, it worked reliably in conditions where Tesla's systems would struggle or fail entirely. "This is exactly what we need," Dr. Cohn told Ibrahim later that day. "Not only does this strengthen our patent defense, but it also proves that genuine innovation is happening across Africa. We're not just copying Western technology. We're developing solutions they never imagined." Ibrahim immediately invited the Lagos students to join their team. Within a week, Chioma and 3 of her colleagues had traveled to Burkina Faso to integrate their innovations into the production vehicles. But the students brought more than just technical innovations. They also brought a powerful story that resonated across Africa and beyond. Here were young African engineers solving complex problems with creativity, traditional knowledge, and cutting-edge science. It was exactly the narrative Ibrahim needed to counter Tesla's claims of technological superiority. The story gained international attention when Keoma was featured on the cover of a major technology magazine. The headline read, "Africa's New Generation of Innovators," and the article detailed how young engineers across the continent were developing solutions that established companies had overlooked. Tesla's response was swift and aggressive. They filed additional patent claims targeting the new cooling system, arguing that it violated their thermal management patents. They also increased pressure on suppliers and attempted to recruit key personnel from Ibrahim's team with lucrative job offers. But these tactics began to backfire. The aggressive legal strategy was generating negative publicity for Tesla, particularly among younger consumers who admired the African innovation story. Social media campaigns supporting Ibrahim's company went viral, with hashtags like #Africa Innovates and Tesla vs Africa trending worldwide. More importantly, Tesla's actions attracted attention from competition authorities in several countries. The European Union announced an investigation into Tesla's patent practices, questioning whether the company was using intellectual property law to prevent legitimate competition. Similar investigations were launched in Brazil, India, and South Africa. The turning point came during a televised debate between Elon Musk and Ibrahim at a major technology conference in Dubai. Both men had initially been reluctant to participate, but the organizers convinced them that a public discussion would benefit the entire electric vehicle industry. The debate was watched by millions of people worldwide, but it was particularly popular across Africa, where viewing parties were organized, in cities and towns throughout the continent. Musk opened with his traditional arguments about innovation and intellectual property protection. Tesla has invested over $20 billion in electric vehicle technology, he stated. We deserve protection for our innovations. If anyone can copy our technology without consequences, there's no incentive for companies to invest in research and development. Ibrahim's response was calm but powerful. Mr. Musk, we're not copying your technology. We're solving problems you never considered. Your cars are designed for wealthy consumers in rich countries with perfect infrastructure. We built vehicles for people who can't afford your products and live in places your engineers never visited. He gestured toward a screen, showing images of African roads, solar installations, and families. You say you want to accelerate sustainable transportation, but you've ignored 1.4 billion people. We're actually doing what you claim to want, making electric vehicles accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy. The most powerful moment came when Ibrahim played a video message from customers who had purchased their vehicles. A taxi driver in Accra explained how the solar charging had eliminated his fuel costs. A rural doctor in Mali described using her vehicle to reach patients in remote villages. A small business owner in Nairobi talked about how the reliable transportation had doubled her income. These people don't care about patent disputes or corporate profits, Ibrahim said as the video ended. They care about transportation that works for their lives and their budgets. That's what we've provided, and that's what Tesla has ignored. Musk seemed genuinely moved by the customer testimonials, but he maintained his position. I understand the social benefits, he said, but legal protections exist for good reasons. Maybe we can find a way to license our technology at affordable rates for developing markets. Why should Africa pay licensing fees for technology we improved? Ibrahim countered. Your battery management doesn't work in our conditions. Your charging system requires infrastructure we don't have. Your cooling system fails in our climate. We solved these problems ourselves, using our own innovation and creativity. The audience clearly favored Ibrahim's arguments, applauding enthusiastically at his responses. But the debate's most significant impact came afterward, when several major investors and technology companies announced new partnerships with African electric vehicle projects. A Chinese battery manufacturer committed to building a factory in Kenya specifically to serve African electric vehicle companies. A German engineering firm announced plans to establish research facilities in 3 African countries. Most surprisingly, a group of Silicon Valley investors led by a former Tesla executive announced a $100 million fund dedicated to African automotive innovation. This debate showed us something important, explained Sarah Chen, the former Tesla executive who was leading the new investment fund. There's enormous innovation happening in Africa that we've been ignoring. These aren't just car companies. They're solving fundamental problems that could benefit everyone. But Tesla wasn't giving up. 2 days after the debate, they announced a major expansion of their patent licensing program, specifically targeting developing markets. They also revealed plans to establish their own research facility in South Africa, claiming they wanted to better understand African transportation needs. Industry analysts were divided about Tesla's motives. Some saw it as genuine recognition of an important market opportunity. Others viewed it as a defensive move designed to maintain control over electric vehicle technology. Ibrahim's team was skeptical, but focused on their own growth. Production was ramping up steadily, with new vehicles rolling off their assembly line every day. They had expanded into 3 additional African countries, and were negotiating partnerships in Asia and South America. More importantly, their success was inspiring similar projects across the developing world. Electric vehicle companies were emerging in India, Brazil, and Southeast Asia, all using similar approaches to create affordable, locally adapted vehicles. "This is bigger than just our company," Dr. Cohn observed during a team meeting. "We've proven that innovation doesn't have to come from Silicon Valley or Detroit. People everywhere can solve their own problems if they have the opportunity and support." But even as they celebrated their progress, new challenges were emerging. Tesla's licensing program was attracting some potential competitors who might choose easier partnerships over independent innovation. Traditional automakers were also beginning to pay attention to developing markets, potentially bringing enormous resources to compete against smaller, local companies. The real test would come in the next phase, when initial success would have to be transformed into sustained growth and long-term viability. Could Ibrahim's vision of African technological independence survive the increased attention and competition it had attracted? The crisis hit without warning on a busy Monday morning in September. Ibrahim was reviewing production reports when Dr. Cohn burst into his office, her face pale with concern. "We have a major problem," she announced, setting her laptop on his desk. The screen showed a news article with an alarming headline: "African electric cars recalled due to battery fire risk." Ibrahim's heart sank as he read the details. 3 vehicles in Ghana had experienced battery malfunctions, with one resulting in a small fire. No one had been injured, but videos of smoking vehicles were spreading rapidly across social media. Tesla's stock price was already rising on the news, while orders for Ibrahim's vehicles began canceling within hours. "How bad is it really?" Ibrahim asked, though he dreaded the answer. "The technical problem is actually minor," Dr. Cohn explained. "It's a software glitch in the charging system that can be fixed with a simple update, but the timing couldn't be worse. Tesla just announced their new African distribution partnership, and now this happens." Ibrahim studied the timeline carefully. The battery malfunctions had occurred within days of each other, all in the same city, all involving vehicles from the same production batch. It seemed too convenient to be purely coincidental. "Do we have any evidence of sabotage?" he asked. "Nothing definitive, but our local technician in Accra found something interesting. All 3 vehicles had their charging ports tampered with in a way that would cause exactly the kind of malfunction we saw. It would require specific technical knowledge to do this correctly." The implications were serious. If Tesla or their allies were resorting to sabotage, it meant the competition was becoming more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. But proving deliberate interference would be extremely difficult, and making accusations without solid evidence could make the situation worse. More immediately, they faced a public relations disaster that could destroy everything they had built. News outlets were comparing their situation to early Tesla recalls and battery fires, but with much less sympathetic coverage. Headlines like "African Car Company in Crisis" and "Is Local Innovation Safe?" dominated the news cycle. The recall itself was relatively straightforward. They needed to update software on about 800 vehicles, which could be done remotely or during routine maintenance visits. But managing the public perception was much more challenging. Ibrahim convened an emergency meeting with his entire leadership team. "We need to be completely transparent about what happened and how we're fixing it," he declared. "But we also need to use this crisis to demonstrate something important about our company and our values." Instead of hiding from the media, Ibrahim decided to hold a public press conference at their manufacturing facility. He invited journalists, customers, competitors, and anyone else who wanted to attend. Most importantly, he invited the 3 customers whose vehicles had malfunctioned, offering to personally apologize and explain the situation. "Ladies and gentlemen, we made a mistake," Ibrahim began his remarks. 3 of our vehicles experienced problems that could have been dangerous. We take full responsibility for this failure, and we're taking immediate action to fix it. He explained the technical details clearly, without trying to minimize the seriousness of the situation. He announced that every affected customer would receive a full refund if they chose to return their vehicle, plus compensation for any inconvenience or damages. But then he shifted to a broader message. This incident reminds us why we started this company. We didn't build these vehicles to compete with Tesla or prove we could copy Western technology. We built them because African people deserve reliable, affordable transportation that works in our conditions. He gestured toward the production line where workers were continuing to assemble vehicles. Every person in this factory is committed to building the best cars possible. When we make mistakes, we fix them quickly and learn from them. When we succeed, we share that success with our communities. The most powerful moment came when one of the affected customers, a taxi driver named Kwame Asante, stepped forward to speak. Everyone expected him to express anger or demand compensation. Instead, Kwame surprised the audience. "Captain Traoré, I've been driving taxis for 20 years, he said. The final confrontation came not in a courtroom or boardroom, but in the most unexpected place possible, a small village outside of Bamako, Mali, where neither Tesla nor any other major automotive company had ever set foot. Ibrahim was visiting the village as part of a routine customer service trip when he received an urgent phone call from Marcus Washington in Detroit. "You need to see the news immediately," Marcus said, his voice tense with excitement. Tesla's stock just dropped 15% in one day. The cause wasn't anything Ibrahim's company had done directly. Instead, it was the cumulative effect of everything that had happened over the past 2 years. The emergence of affordable electric vehicles in developing markets had triggered a fundamental shift in how investors viewed the automotive industry. Major investment firm had published a report titled The Tesla Disruption: How Emerging Market Innovation is Reshaping Electric Vehicles. The report detailed how companies like Ibrahim's were not just competing in poor countries but developing technologies and approaches that could eventually challenge Tesla in wealthy markets too. The traditional model assumes innovation flows from rich countries to poor countries, the report explained. But these new companies are solving problems that established manufacturers never considered. Their solutions may prove superior even in developed markets. The report highlighted several technical innovations that had emerged from developing country electric vehicle companies. The pottery-based cooling system from Lagos was being tested by automotive companies in India and Brazil. A new type of modular battery design from Bangladesh was attracting interest from European manufacturers. Most significantly, solar integration systems developed for African conditions were proving more efficient than Tesla's solar roof technology. But the report's most damaging conclusion was about market strategy. Tesla and other established manufacturers have largely ignored 80% of the world's population. Now that ignored population is developing their own solutions, which may prove more innovative and cost-effective than traditional approaches. Within hours of the report's publication, Tesla's stock price began falling. Other traditional automotive companies also saw their valuations decline as investors worried about new forms of competition they hadn't anticipated. Elon Musk's response was swift and unprecedented. Instead of defending Tesla's strategy or dismissing the competition, he announced that Tesla would immediately begin developing new vehicle lines specifically for emerging markets. More surprisingly, he invited Ibrahim to visit Tesla's headquarters for discussions about potential collaboration. Ibrahim was initially skeptical of the invitation. After 2 years of patent disputes and competitive battles, he suspected this might be another attempt to control or co-opt their innovation. But Dr. Cohn convinced him that the meeting could be valuable. Even if we don't reach any agreements, it's important for them to understand what we've accomplished, she argued, and it's important for us to understand their thinking. The visit to Tesla's California headquarters was surreal for Ibrahim. The gleaming facilities and cutting-edge technology were impressive, but what struck him most was how different the environment was from their own manufacturing facility in Burkina Faso. Tesla's engineers worked in climate-controlled laboratories, testing vehicles on perfect indoor tracks with ideal conditions. Their design studios focused on sleek aesthetics and high-end materials. Their customer research was based on surveys and focus groups with wealthy consumers in major cities. "It's beautiful," Ibrahim told Musk as they toured the facility. "But It's also completely disconnected from how most people in the world actually live. Musk seemed genuinely interested in Ibrahim's perspective. "Show me what we're missing," he said simply. Ibrahim pulled out his phone and showed videos from their own operations. African engineers testing vehicles on dusty, unpaved roads. Solar panels generating electricity while vehicles sat in village markets. Customers repairing their own vehicles using simple tools and locally available parts. "This is real-world engineering," Ibrahim explained. "We don't have perfect conditions, so we have to build things that work in imperfect conditions. That makes our solutions more robust, not less advanced." The most important conversation happened during a private dinner between the two men. Away from lawyers, engineers, and media attention, they could speak more honestly about their visions and concerns. "I never meant to ignore developing markets," Musk admitted. "We always planned to expand there eventually, but we thought we needed to perfect the technology in easier markets first." "That approach might have made sense 20 years ago," Ibrahim replied. "But today, innovation is happening everywhere. If you wait for perfect conditions, someone else will solve the problem first." Musk leaned forward, clearly thinking about the implications. "What would you do if you were running Tesla?" Ibrahim had been preparing for this question. "I would stop thinking about rich markets and poor markets. I would think about human problems that need solving. Transportation is a human problem. Clean energy is a human problem. These problems exist everywhere, but they look different in different places." He gestured toward the window, where they could see expensive cars in the company parking lot. "Your engineers solved problems for people who already had good solutions. We solve problems for people who had no solutions. Which approach do you think creates more value?" The dinner conversation lasted until well past midnight, covering everything from engineering philosophy to economic development to the future of human transportation. Both men came away with new perspectives, though they didn't reach any formal agreements. However, the symbolic importance of their meeting was enormous. Photos of the two innovators shaking hands appeared on news websites around the world, with headlines like "African Innovation Meets Silicon Valley" and "The Future of Electric Vehicles." More importantly, the meeting marked a shift in how the entire automotive industry viewed innovation and competition. Within months, every major car manufacturer announced new programs focused on emerging markets. Engineering teams began studying the technical innovations that had emerged from developing countries. Investment flowed toward companies that were solving transportation problems in challenging conditions. But perhaps the most significant change was happening among young engineers and entrepreneurs around the world. Ibrahim's success had proven that innovation could emerge from anywhere, not just traditional centers of technology and wealth. Universities in Africa, Asia, and Latin America began developing new programs focused on appropriate technology and sustainable development. Young engineers started companies aimed at solving local problems rather than copying Western solutions. Investors began looking for opportunities in places they had previously ignored. "We didn't just build a car company," Dr. Cohn observed during a team meeting. "We helped change how people think about innovation itself." Ibrahim nodded, but he was already focused on the next challenges. Success brought new responsibilities. Their approach was being copied and adapted around the world, but not always with the same values and commitment to serving ordinary people. The real test isn't whether we can build successful companies," he told his team. "The test is whether we can create a different kind of economy, one that serves everyone, not just the wealthy." As their second year of full production ended, Ibrahim's company had grown beyond anything he had originally imagined. They were manufacturing vehicles in 4 countries, had partnerships on 3 continents, and were developing technologies that were influencing the entire automotive industry. But more importantly, they had inspired a global movement of innovators who believed that better solutions were possible. From electric buses in Brazil to solar-powered irrigation pumps in India to wind-powered charging stations in Kenya, people everywhere were proving that innovation could serve human needs rather than just corporate profits. Tesla's stock price had recovered somewhat, but the company had been forced to fundamentally rethink its strategy and priorities. The automotive industry as a whole was more competitive, more innovative, and more focused on solving real problems for real people. Standing in his office in Ouagadougou, looking out at the busy streets where electric and conventional vehicles shared the road, Ibrahim reflected on how much had changed. 2 years ago, he had been a military officer with a dream of African technological independence. Now he was leading a global movement that was reshaping one of the world's largest industries. But the most satisfying change was simpler and more personal. In villages and cities across Africa, families were traveling more easily, breathing cleaner air and spending less money on transportation. Taxi drivers were earning better livings. Small businesses were growing because reliable transportation was more affordable. "This is why we started," Ibrahim said to himself, watching a familiar electric taxi pass below his window. Not to beat Tesla or prove anything to the world, just to help people live better lives. The revolution in transportation was just beginning, but it was already clear that it would be led not by traditional centers of power and wealth, but by innovators who understood that the best solutions come from serving human needs, wherever those needs existed.